So we began several weeks ago the series about Jewish mysticism. Tonight is the fourth lecture about holistic healing. Many of you perhaps did not hear of the term holistic. Just think of the term whole or wholeness. It's not just about the body, but it's also about the spirit. This topic is an interesting topic because it is very important to most of us. It deals with health. And throughout the history of mankind, humanity has always been concerned about their well-being. They've looked for all sorts of ways and means to cure themselves, whether it was with herbs or all kinds of ointments that they used. What man hopefully has realized is that as smart as he may be and as capable as he is limited. He can easily get sick, and in the end he dies. And it was a human being, as special as he may be, as the rabbis say, he's the crown of creation, nonetheless has his limitations. And one of those limitations is seen in the area of illness. The human being, nonetheless, despite it all, even though he's aware of his weaknesses, he tends to have in him the strong will of conquering the world, trying to conquer that which is very difficult, that which is very challenging. He has always striven to improve his situation, to live more comfortably, and to cure anything that apparently is possible to cure. He tried his best. And sometimes he succeeded. However, not all the civilizations, not all cultures took a deeper look into this subject of illness and healing. And they treated it as something physical in nature. And that which is physical in nature is dealt with in the physical realm, with whatever cures they came across, whatever they saw in the fields, whatever they were taught. They didn't go beyond that. That's the majority of them. There were some that did a little bit more research, perhaps, that looked at it a little bit deeper and realized that there perhaps a spiritual connection to illnesses. Perhaps there's something beyond the physical. And they came to the conclusion, yes, that illness can be physical, can be mental, can be emotional, and can be spiritual. In other words, one should not just focus on the physical. When there's an illness, if you want to deal with it properly, you should really attack it as a whole. And that is what holistic healing is all about. Deal with every aspect of the individual, not just the physical. They also realized, those that did a little bit of a deeper investigation into this, they realized that sickness is really an imbalance. In an ideal state, there's balance. Everything is balanced, everything is in harmony. Illness or pain is indicative that something is out of sync, out of balance. So, take for example India. In Indian culture, they came up with this concept called the chakras. 7 chakras that they attribute to 7 points in the physical body through which a certain spiritual energy flows. And I'm not going to get too much into it because that is not so much the subject of what we want to cover, but it does coincide. What they've taught does coincide with some of our teachings, that there is a spiritual energy of sorts that does permeate the human being. And we'll talk perhaps a little bit more about that when we talk about the topic of the human aura. You know what the human aura is?
The light.
The light, or the aura that surrounds him. Then we'll go into more detail about that. But possibly you can explain it as 7 points, as they do. And I say possibly because I did not do research into this. But it does coincide with what we know, that there are certain points in the human body through which energy flows, and if one of them is blocked, that can be an illness. In other words, an illness is as a result of a blockage in one of these energy points. And we're talking about a spiritual energy. So something is out of balance, which results in illness or results in some degree of pain. What I want to first do, however, is to distinguish physical pain from spiritual pain, or spiritual illness from physical illness. We need to keep in mind that the Torah emphasizes health, physical health. It says, "V'nishmartem me'od lenafshotechem." Watch your health, watch your body, make sure you treat it well. This is the vessel for the soul. This is how you will live your life and not leave this world before your time. Take care of it. Take it seriously. And the human being does have it within his means to take care of, partially, to take care of his health. The Rambam, Maimonides, was a great doctor and philosopher, great sage. And he wrote that most physical ailments, at least in his days, but I believe it's still true today, are attributed to what we eat. In other words, most people get sick. Most sicknesses have to do with what you eat. And it's not just the quality of the food that he's talking about, it's also the quantity, overeating or undereating. So whether it's the quantity or the quality of food, today, as you know, most people, or I should say a lot of people, eat junk food or processed food. And it's very possible, actually very likely, that a lot of the illnesses today for which science does not have a real cure has to do with the types of foods that we're eating. You know, how do you stop all these foods that people got used to eating? Anyway, foods I also mean by drinks, all the sugary drinks. And people do not know how much of it. It could be that a little bit of it is okay, too much of it okay, too much of it is not good. So people don't know the right amounts, people don't have the right balance in what they eat in their diets. There's no doubt about this. I mean, look at how many books have been written about diets. And as I've said in the past, I wish they would write a book about the diet of the soul, what the human being needs to do on a spiritual level, to be in a very special diet so that he's spiritually balanced. But there's no doubt about it. Physical health is something that we have a little bit of control. I say a little bit because a lot of the times we don't know what's in the food that we eat. But people have to take responsibility for what they eat, because that will make a difference in their life, not only in their health, but in the quality of life. Then we have genes. That's something that we don't really have too much control over. There are hereditary genes that are transmitted from parent to child. So sometimes children are born with certain tendencies, certain weaknesses in their immune system. And as a result of that, they are exposed to all kinds of ailments more than others. On top of that, you have viruses, you have bacteria, and you have allergies. All of these are very, very, very small. You couldn't see them unless you're looking at them through a very powerful microscope. And that is something that our immune system has to deal with all the time. It is dealing with it. It's actually doing battle with all kinds of pathogens, as they're called, that are trying to invade us from the outside. And many times the body fights them off successfully. Many times it loses the battle, and that is when people become sick. And they need to go to the doctor, they need to take some medication to overcome that, to strengthen their immune system. In other words, the immune system can handle so much. It's supposed to fight. It identifies the enemy and it fights him off. But sometimes it is overwhelmed, or the immune system is simply very weak to begin with and it cannot do battle. And that is why many times people become sick of all these physical type of ailments that exist out there. However, there is an area that a lot of people are not familiar with, and that is spiritual ailments, which the Kabbalah talks a little bit more. The Kabbalah tells us that when somebody becomes sick in a very unusual way, Unusual meaning it's not just a cold, it's not just fever, it's not just a headache. Something that is very, very atypical, even though it may be common in the world today, but still it's not typical. It could be, or I should say it usually is, a signal from above. Something is wrong with your spiritual balance. There's something in your life that you're doing that is wrong. And therefore the body is letting you know this. Even though the body has its sensors that is letting you know that something is physically wrong, here the Kabbalah is teaching us that it's not just the body that is letting us know, there's something perhaps on a deeper level that is wrong with us. That we receive a signal through the body. Now imagine you're driving a car and all of a sudden the check engine sensor goes off, goes on. Now most of you probably don't know what that means. There's several possibilities of why the check engine sensor goes on. If you see that sensor turn on, you have to look into it. It could be something minor, like an oxygen sensor. It could be something more serious, like the catalytic converter. There's all kinds of possibilities. Today's electronics in cars are fabulous. They narrow it down. You still have to check it out with a mechanic. They still have to get the code. There's a special computer that reads the code, and hopefully that's all it is. And then you spend a few $100s and you fix the problem. What people don't realize is that sometimes the problem that is happening to this car is not as a result of wear and tear, but as a result of bad driving habits. In other words, if people don't drive properly, they don't change the oil, they don't check the water, they don't check the air in their tires, not only will they not have fuel efficiency, they can lead to other problems. In other words, in the long run, not driving properly, not taking care of your car, can lead to other trouble with the car. Whereas if you drove well, you took care of your car, it would last longer. So in the same way with the body, yes, there is a signal coming, but is the signal just because of wear and tear? Is it just because something is not right in the body, in the immune system? Or is it that perhaps this individual did something on a spiritual level? He's not driving himself properly in life. He's not conducting himself properly with people. He's misbehaving. And God sends us messages. We know that. Judaism teaches that very, very clearly, that there's complete hashgacha pratit. God intercedes in our life. He's involved. And part of his involvement is to let people know you've got to change your ways. You've got to change your habits. On a spiritual level, there's something that's not right. There's no balance. So how is he going to know? There's various ways, which we'll talk about them in the other lectures as well. How does one know that something is not right? But a physical ailment, some sort of pain, it doesn't have to be a sickness. It could be pain. Pain in some parts of the body that is unusual. That is a signal, the Kabbalah teaches, that perhaps we're doing something not right. In the past, many civilizations attempted to find all the solutions, all the cures in nature. Plants, herbs. And that's good. We agree with that. In other words, according to our tradition, God put all kinds of cures into herbs and plants. And fruits perhaps too. Yes. That's our tradition. And many civilizations, that's all they did. In other words, they tried to find some plant, some herb, whether through chewing on it or by cooking it or doing something with it, somehow this will relieve them of the pain or whatever that they were going through, whatever illness that they may have contracted. This could have worked for some things, but isn't it interesting? It's interesting that in every generation, no matter how many cures we have, no matter how much knowledge we have, as far as the remedies are concerned, the various remedies and what they do for us, there's always one sickness, there's always one particular ailment that man does not succeed in conquering. Look at cancer today. There's all kinds of cancers. Even though they may be able to bring it under control, depending what they use, whether it's surgery or whether it's chemotherapy, depending on what stage it is very, how should I say, very destructive. In other words, if left untreated, people die from this all the time. They have not found the cure, a powerful cure that can stop it right away on its tracks and to assure this individual it's not coming back. Because sometimes they get rid of it, but it comes back. So there's always going to be something in every generation. It could be like tuberculosis in the past, smallpox, all kinds of plagues. You know, there were some plagues in the past that killed off millions of people in Europe several hundred years ago. Millions of people died as a result of the plague, bubonic plague, the Black Plague. And it was difficult to stop. The only viable solution was to get away from that area that was affected. So mankind has never been able to conquer all illnesses. Always been something that he realized that there's nothing for him to do. There's no cure. Chizkiyahu HaMelech, Chizkiyahu the king, in realizing that people were depending on cures alone, and for every illness that they have, they turned to a special book of cures, Sefer HaRefuot. He decided, I'm going to put this away. I'm going to not give access to people anymore to this book that contained many, many remedies, many, many cures. He realized that people were just turning to that, thinking that that's what's going to help them. Whereas they should have turned to God. They should have turned to Hashem. We say in the prayers, we say in the blessing, that ultimately He's the doctor. He's the one that cures. And if He doesn't cure, then you can try as much as you want and it won't help you. We still go to doctors. We still try to take medicine when necessary. But we should not forget that ultimately the one that determines whether we recover or not from a particular ailment is Him. And that's something that people in his generation, Chizkiyahu's generations, were forgetting. Anytime they had a problem, they ran to read what the cure is for this particular ailment. So he put it away. What needed to be reinforced, therefore, throughout history is that prayer is something that should not be forgotten, something that should not be overlooked. And that is exactly what happened with one individual who went to his rabbi, who had a very serious illness. No doctor can help him where he lived. And the rabbi said, listen, go to the special professor in the town of Onipoli, several 100 kilometers perhaps away from where he was living. So it was a long distance to go, but he was willing to go that distance to find a cure to this illness. The professor of Onipoli must have the answer, he figured. So he arrived at a small town, Onipoli, in the Ukraine, and asked the people, where is your professor here? Where is your doctor here? He said, what? Doctor? We don't have a doctor in this town. This is a small town. You don't have a doctor here? So what do you do when you get sick? He said, we have no choice. We pray to God. There's no doctor. So he turned around and went back home, very disappointed. He went so far to find this professor, this doctor. He was told that there's a very important doctor there. So he comes back to the rabbi. Rabbi, why did you send me so far? They told me in Onipoli that there's no doctor there. So the rabbi asks him, tell me, did you ask them what they do when they get sick? He says, yeah, they have no choice, so they pray. He says, that's exactly what I was trying to teach you. He says, don't necessarily think that you're going to have a solution or a cure to your illness by going to the biggest doctor. The biggest doctor of all is God. Turn to Him. And you seem to forget about that. You try all kinds of methods, all kinds of cures, right, to alleviate your pain, to heal yourself. you don't realize that in the end, you should be turning to Him. It doesn't mean that one should not take medicine. I'm not saying that one should forget that. One needs to take medication if necessary, if that's what's prescribed. One needs to consult with doctors, of course, because they are the medium, the channel through which we find out what the body needs. They know. They're knowledgeable, supposedly. They're experienced. So definitely one needs to consult with a professional. But he must realize at all times that the ultimate cure is from Shamayim, is from heaven. That's ultimately where it will come down to. All right, so getting back to our individuals of the past, who lived in the past, what would they do when nothing helped? Let's say they tried all sorts of cures and all sorts of healing remedies, and nothing helped. What's next? What would they do? If you read the history of medicine, you will notice that a lot of alternative medicine developed. What's alternative? Something else. In other words, when the standard, traditional, does not work, you try something else, something different. That's what alternative medicine is. And mankind has tried all kinds of things. Many of you have heard of acupuncture?
Yes.
Okay. How about cupping? Where you take a hot cup, right, and put it in someone's back, and then you remove it, right?
Yes.
Leeches, sure. There's a lot of methods that have been used in the past and that are still being used in some areas. Do they work? To some extent, yeah. To some extent, yes. People claim that it's not just a placebo. You know, placebo is more psychological. You do something, and they ask you, so, do you feel better? Oh, of course I feel better, you know, because they did something, so they, they figure. No, acupuncture, they say, does succeed in relieving pain. So with pain, it may help a little bit, but it's not the cure of all illnesses, and definitely not of certain illnesses. It could help a little bit to relieve pain. A lot of these alternative medicines have not been proven, have not been demonstrated scientifically. It does not mean that they're not effective. It's just that not enough has been done. It hasn't been checked out thoroughly, that one can ascertain for sure that this is a cure. But they do help a little bit. Then there's something called Qigong or Qigong in Chinese. Also, maybe partially it could help one through yoga and meditation and all kinds of breathing methods that they use to relieve some of the pressure that they may have been building up. Then there's something called reflexology. Have you heard about that? Auricular treatment, where they touch certain spots of the ear with needles, or of your foot, from the bottom of the foot at certain spots. Maybe, it could be. Again, it's not 100% proven, but I'm just giving you examples of what people have tried, you know, to get some help, you know, in relieving their pain or in healing themselves. What I want to do now is just give you a few examples of Jewish alternative medicine, as they're called sgulot. There's different kinds of sgulot. Sgulot are metaphysical remedies. That's the way I call them. Not so much alternative medicine, but metaphysical. Metaphysical means it's transcendental. It's beyond the laws of physics. Now, not all sgulot are metaphysical. Some sgulot are physical. What does the word sgula mean? Something unique, something special, something different than the typical. And every sgula apparently has a certain power that is concealed. It's not obvious, it's not evident. So you could have, for example, some plant where obviously the evident is its fragrance. Maybe if you make a tea out of it, you'll feel better. That's the more evident. The segula is that which is not so evident, that which is more concealed, but it's very, very unique and special and helps in certain particular areas. There are some that are more spiritual segulot, that help on a more spiritual level. What they all have in common, however, is that they bypass. They bypass the traditional medicine. They bypass the traditional method of treating a problem. And the question is, why should you need a segula? Why not just regular medication? It is possible that somehow in life there are times that we need to go to a doctor. We need to take certain medication. There are other times that perhaps surgery is called for. There are times that perhaps none of that is necessary, just a segula. In other words, it all depends on what the reason behind the problem is. It could be something minor, it could be something major. If you look at the Gemara, the Talmud, you will find all kinds of traditional medicine that was used in the past, that is not really used today as much, either because we don't have all the information that they had in the past, or because we don't really understand very well what they wrote, or it could be that it doesn't work as well today as it did in the past. For whatever reason, a lot of these medications that are brought down into the Talmud are not necessarily used. There are some, however, that are used. One, for example, is garlic. Garlic, the rabbis tell us, is very potent, has many, many benefits. I don't have now the time to list for you all the benefits of it, but there are a lot of benefits with garlic. And that is something known today. It's not a secret. Many people are aware of that. It's not just something that's written in the Talmud. It has been used in the past, it's still being used, and apparently it's very beneficial to have garlic from time to time. What's the disadvantage of it? I guess the odor. And they're able to deal with that too these days. But either way, regardless of the odor, it is very, very powerful. It definitely does something. It's something beneficial. What would be an example of a transcendental, of a segula that is more spiritual? Something that is not so physical in nature. Well, the typical is prayer. There are certain prayers, I'm not just saying prayer in general, there are certain specific prayers that are good for marriage, to find your soulmate. And I have a whole lecture about that. It's called Metaphysical Remedies for Finding Your Soulmate. Will they help you? Will they work? Not necessarily. It all depends what the problem is. Imagine somebody who's very picky. A very picky person in choosing who he wants to marry. He can do all the remedies he wants to. It's not going to help him, because he's not dealing with the problem himself. He is the problem, right? So depending on the circumstances, sometimes a segula will help. Sometimes these metaphysical remedies are not the solution. Prayer is always very powerful. According to our tradition, prayer is the most powerful. But sometimes another form of metaphysical remedy could be in the form of an amulet, which we'll talk about in another lecture in this series. How come amulets work, or do they work? Kami'ot. What's the power behind a kamiyah, an amulet or a talisman that people sometimes wear? What's behind that? But let me give you a more common segula that is very unusual, but somehow works. It's a little bit more physical, but it's unusual. Unusual meaning that it's not your typical, and how it works is also not known. We don't understand how, but it works. There are books that have many, many segulot, and one of them is the use of scorpions to treat certain bites and infections. Scorpions, you take certain scorpion and you grind it up and you smear it on the infection, and the infection will go away. And some of these remedies have been tried and of course succeeded. I'm not talking about remedies that have been tried and did not succeed. I'm talking about the ones that do really work. And the question is, how come? What makes this work? If I grind up a scorpion, there's various kinds of segulot like this that involve strange animals, or strange animal parts, I should say. And that is why the Chinese and others in Asia have been using animal parts for all kinds of things. Now the problem with that is that there's a lot of exaggeration. There's a lot of misinformed people out there who think that the horn of a rhinoceros, that the fins of a shark, and all these kinds of things that they still use today will help them in some area. A lot of that is not only unproven, not only is it cruel to the animal, but it's a waste of time and money. It doesn't really help. They think it helps. So as a result of the search, mankind has continuously searched for cures, alternative cures. They somehow believed, or either as a result of something else that is similar, like scorpions helps. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe a tarantula. Maybe some spider will help in some other area. So they've tried. Maybe one individual was successful, maybe he thought it was as a result of this. They tried all kinds of things. They were led to believe. Much of this is not true. Some of it may be. Scorpions has been beneficial in treating some kinds of infections. And the question is, how does it work? It's very simple, actually. Have you all heard about antivenom? You know how antivenom, by the way, is the serum that's used for treating snake bites. There's different kinds of snakes, there's different kinds of poisons that affect different parts of the body. So you have to have the antidote, the proper antivenom for that particular snake bite. Basically, they take the venom from the snake, right? They dilute it, inject it into an animal, a horse or a sheep or a rabbit, and once it's in the animal immediately generates antibodies against this foreign substance. Then they take these antibodies that were produced by the animal and make the antivenom with it, because that's what an antibody is. It's to fight off. So somehow this process helps in dealing with the snake bites. Obviously, you need to have this taken care of right away. You don't want to wait too long if you're bitten by a snake. You need to get this help immediately. So you see, you're taking the poison of a snake, of all things, the poison of the same snake that bit you. Yes, somehow, by getting the antibodies that are produced from animals that have been injected with a diluted amount of this venom, these antibodies will help humans as well. So I don't see any difficulty in understanding why scorpions and the like may help in treating certain kinds of infections or bites and stings. Something a little bit stranger than that doesn't appear to be too physical, but I still believe it is physical, is using pigeons for treating jaundice. Have you heard of this? No. In Israel, they know about this. Somebody who has jaundice, you know what jaundice is? When somebody becomes yellow. Oh. Yeah. Has Tzahevet in Hebrew, right? It has to do with the bilirubin, right? So they take a pigeon and they put the pigeons close to the human's navel, connect the two, and little by little that pigeon absorbs some of that jaundice. It dies, and sometimes you may need 5, 10 pigeons, but they die. They absorb from the human navel, they absorb little by little of the jaundice, they die, and after a while the individual is cured. A lot of doctors still believe that this is primitive stuff, that this is ridiculous. The best thing to do is try it.
Does anybody try it?
In Israel, sure, yes. In Israel, they still do it. Yes. There's articles all the time. What?
My family did hepatitis.
Yes, similar. Did it help?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So it appears primitive. You bring in pigeons, and some doctors will say, "Poor pigeons." You know. Yeah. We talked about cruelty. I mean, unnecessary cruelty. But here, if it helps, then obviously you can do it. So just try it out. I'm not saying that you should try it out. Obviously, there's other medication that takes care of jaundice as well. But if you don't have the medication, or if you want to use the traditional method of dealing with it, it should help. How come? Why? It's a segula. A woman who's pregnant and is concerned about miscarriages, what they've used in the past is a ruby stone that she'd wear. Ruby stones, and I think even magnets, have something in them, some quality, some power, that helps the woman who's having hard labor or miscarriages to protect her during this very delicate time. Now, how do we know that gemstones have some special power other than their beauty to be used in jewelry? If you look at the priestly garments, the Kohen Gadol had, one of his garments was the Hoshen, the breastplate. And what was on the breastplate? 12 stones, 12 precious and semi-precious stones. And on each stone you had inscribed or engraved the name of one of the tribes. Why stones? Why engrave the names on the stones? You want to engrave the names so that the priest should always remember all the tribes and pray for them? So engrave them on gold. Why stones? And every stone is different color, right? Different qualities apparently, different powers. Just because science is not aware of what these stones can do doesn't mean that they don't have some power. Apparently they do have some power. The way I look at the stones is, perhaps many of you who wear jewelry are familiar with allergic reactions to nickel. You know, when you wear jewelry, bracelets, necklaces, earrings that are not pure gold or pure silver, but have nickel or other alloys, other metals, there can be a reaction. There can be a rash, an allergic reaction as a result. Some people are sensitive to this. So what is it in nickel? So scientifically they explain what happens as a result of the sweat combining with the nickel, the oxidation and so forth, and it irritates the skin. Yeah. But why are some people more sensitive to it than others? That's the big question. It's not that across the board everybody's sensitive to nickel, but there's nothing wrong with nickel. So we see that there's certain sensitivities that some people have. That's what allergies are. What are allergies? Certain sensitivities, the immune system is weak in a particular area, and therefore there's a reaction. So here, perhaps there's the opposite reaction. There's a chemical reaction perhaps, but it's positive instead, it's benign, it's not negative. It does actually something favorable, good for the individual, not something bad. This stone that she wears, some have claimed that even if you grind this stone and eat it, I think that would be the waste of a stone. But it could be, we don't know. Remember, a lot of this knowledge has been lost. They knew a lot of things that we don't know. And it could be that wearing certain types of gemstones does offer some protection to the individual. Another example perhaps that can illustrate this point of how certain metals or certain stones have certain qualities. Take a look at lead. You know what lead is used for? Lead has many, many uses. It's a very, very interesting metal. But one of the special qualities of lead is that it blocks radiation. Went to the dentist, right? So you know what I mean? You're going to take an X-ray. It's very good. It has the highest atomic number. If you look at it chemically, it's very, very interesting how the atoms are stable. I mean, we don't have the time to go into all the details of the chemistry behind it, but the element of lead is a very interesting element. It's not your typical element. And it does apparently do something very, very interesting, to block radiation more than others, more than the other elements. The question is, however, how do these things help internally if they're on the outside? You know, when you swallow something, you absorb something, ingest something into your system, then maybe it does something to you. For example, lead poisoning. I mean, that's bad if you ingest it, right? It could be poisonous, lead, if you ingest it. How do these things work from the outside? Why should they be beneficial on the outside? How does it just protect or block or affect that which is inside? I think the best example for that is something called the patch. It's called transdermal patch. Transdermal medicine means that you can apply medicine to the skin, like a patch under the ear. Let's say somebody's going to be very seasick if he's going to go on a boat ride. He doesn't want to be seasick. You know, there's a patch that you put under the ear. And how does that work? You didn't eat anything, you didn't have a pill or anything. It's called transdermal. Transdermal means that it passes through the skin. So there are certain medications that can just pass through the skin. I mean, it's not a big deal. The various layers of the skin, it's not that much to go through until it gets into the blood cells. So in the same way you have a patch, which is going to go through the skin, you can have the effects of certain elements, stones, minerals, that can perhaps affect the body in some way, even though you're not eating it. You're just putting it on the outside, either as a protection of something or as a cure. My analysis, however, of this topic, what I think, if you studied chemistry and physics to an extent, you will recall that there are 4 fundamental forces of nature. Remember? 4 fundamental forces of nature. What are they? Gravitational, electromagnetic, then you have the strong nuclear and the weak nuclear. And last week we spoke about sets of 4. It's interesting. You have solid, liquid, gas, plasma. It's interesting how you have all kinds of sets of 4s. If you understand how they work, especially the weak nuclear and the strong nuclear, which actually, when you're dealing with radioactivity and decay, you're dealing with these forces. They are more on the smaller scale. You can't really see them happening, like you see with gravity and electromagnetic forces, perhaps. Some forces work on a very, very small scale, on an atom scale, a molecular level. And these are the forces that hold things together. For example, in chemistry, you have ionic bonds, you have the covalent bonds of how atoms are held together and what is necessary to break them apart. Incredible forces in nature. It is possible that there's a 5th force that science is not familiar with, that is somehow working here. Or it could be that one of these forces on a very minor level is having an effect. Today they have very powerful microscopes that can actually see the atoms. They can actually see a lot more than they saw years ago. So in the past they were not exactly aware of what was happening and why it works. Today they may discover one day that certain things are very helpful because of what they do. Somehow the interaction between the two causes an explosion. You know, certain interactions, chemical interactions, when you bring them together, are very explosive, and sometimes not. You have what's called an inert gas. You're familiar with that, no? Inert gases, they're just inert, inactive. And you have some gases that are very active, right? You put a match, and you get a big explosion. You wonder why. These are the forces of nature, incredible forces of nature, because of the way chemicals interact with each other. Some one way, some another way, some don't interact. You get all kinds of results. So if this is in the chemical world, perhaps on a spiritual level too. Not that you have the exact same reactions, but you do have certain things that can protect us from all kinds of spiritual ailments. What would be a spiritual ailment? We're going to talk about that separately. The evil eye, witchcraft. How do you protect yourself from that? What brings that about? So we need protection from that too. So there are methods of dealing with that. There are ways of protecting oneself from these kinds of spiritual ailments. In the same way that this exists in the physical world, they exist in the spiritual world as well. All right, we have an individual who's tried alternative medicine, he's tried yoga, he's tried acupuncture, he went to the best doctors, he's prayed, nothing helps. Now what? Remember, there's all kinds of ways that were attempted in the past. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. But it's okay to try. Definitely. You have no choice, you're going to try. So what's next? So in our tradition, what is next is changing one's name or adding a name. You've heard of that too? Shinui Hashem, Osafat Shem. Today we rarely change a name because we don't know which name is better. But what's the idea behind adding a name or changing a name? Is perhaps we can affect his mazal, his fate. People are born under a certain destiny, a certain mazal, and perhaps from birth they have this predicament, they have this weakness. And obviously, perhaps it only surfaces at a certain stage in life, not right away. Maybe at the age 55 it will surface. Still, nothing else seems to be working. This is attempted. This definitely is attempted, and it sometimes helps. We try everything, including adding a name. And what this name will do, maybe, is give his spiritual immune system the strength that it needs to do battle with this spiritual ailment. Now I say spiritual ailment not because it's spiritual, it is a physical ailment. He's suffering, his body is in pain. But maybe it's connected on a spiritual level to something, and I'm going to explain that soon. Maybe there's something wrong with him spiritually. So that's why I'm calling this a spiritual ailment. It is physical, it's at least coming up or showing up as a physical ailment. But the cause, the root cause of the problem is not necessarily something physical in the body. Remember, it's not the car, it's the driver.
Right.
So we try everything. Changing the name, adding a name may be a possibility. But now let me tell you the most powerful, other than prayer of course, the most powerful attempt at dealing with an illness involves the commandments. Commandments, yeah. According to our tradition, the human being has 248 limbs, 365 ligaments. Whether you include the tendons or the sinews, makes no difference here. This is an approximate figure. I say approximate because it all depends how you count. This number that I gave you, 248 and 365, has to do with the fact that we have 248 positive commandments and 365 negative commandments. So the rabbis bring down this number correlates to limbs, organs, sinews, but they did not necessarily count all. There are more. So it depends what you're counting. They use this number because this concerns areas of purity and impurity. What, in other words, what constitutes something that is impure? So they use this number in conjunction with the anatomy of the human body, not in its whole, counting every single one, but counting some, or counting the majority of them as they concern the laws of impurity. That's all. So that's all you have to remember, even though somebody will tell you, no, there's more than 240, there's more than 365. Don't concern yourself with the exact number because it relates very specifically to that area of impurity. But this number is important because it relates to the mitzvot, to the commandments. And we are told that these commandments also correlate to the various limbs and ligaments of the neshama, of the soul. So in the same way that the physical body has limbs and ligaments, so does the neshama. The neshama has also ligaments. And every mitzvah, every commandment relates to one of those ligaments and limbs of the neshama. And if one of those ligaments or limbs is sick, in other words, the individual ignores it and doesn't fulfill it, it will reflect in the physical body. So he's getting a signal from the physical body as to what is wrong in his neshama, what is defective, or what needs an atonement. The whole subject of atonement, of kapara, is really a separate subject, but it's slightly related. That's why I'm mentioning it. That ultimately pain and suffering is an atonement. It cleanses us. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try to correct it. You need to try your best. But when everything else fails, it may be that one of the ligaments or organs or limbs, however you want to call it, of the soul is not functioning properly. So what should he do? So the rabbis tell us, if you're in danger, if you're about to lose your life, someone is drowning, it is permissible to make a vow. Usually it's not a good idea to make vows. It is discouraged because people may forget their vows, and that is very, very serious. It's a very serious offense to not fulfill your vows. You made a promise. Except when you're in danger. You're drowning in the sea. You have nothing to lose. On the contrary, this may save your life. You're in danger. Hashem, I promise, if you get me out of this, if you save my life, I will commit myself, I will take upon myself to do this mitzvah, this good deed, something that was not done, something that was ignored, something that should be done, something important, obviously. That could be what will save his life. Somebody who's already on his deathbed should never give up. Should try this. If there's something that he can identify that he hasn't been doing right, something that he's been doing wrong, this is the time to take upon him. I mean, people should take upon themselves every day, every year, to improve themselves, to be better people. But if somebody is in tremendous pain, somebody has tremendous problems in life, somebody is going through very, very risky surgery, then he should do that. This could be what will save his life more than anything else. So when we get a signal, we should look at it, we should listen to it, we should do something about it. So now the question is, how can we be proactive in strengthening our spiritual immune system? In other words, we don't want to become sick and then cure. We would like to proactively always be healthy. You know, people take vitamins. That is called being proactive to stay healthy. But you should never lack any vitamins. Do your exercise, eat right, so you don't become sick. Because once you become sick, to get healthy again, it may be not easy. It's easier to stay healthy, remain healthy. In the same way it works with the physical body, the same thing with the neshama, with the soul. So what can we do to be proactive with the soul, with the neshama? So the rabbis tell us like this: Barati yetzer hara, barati Torah tavlim. I created the evil inclination. He causes us a lot of trouble. We get angry, we're lazy, jealous, we committed wrong, an offense, we hurt someone, we stole, all kinds of things like that, right? This is the evil inclination. So Hashem says, yes, you have this inclination, but remember, I also gave you the Torah. The Torah is the antidote of the evil inclination. Why is it an antidote? So the rabbis tell us, first of all, when one learns Torah, he will be protected from the evil inclination. He will be saved from all kinds of troubles. The merit of the Torah is great. But it's not only that. It's not just the merit of learning. It's the teachings of the Torah. If one learns Torah properly, what is he doing? He's learning the proper Jewish perspective on how to live his life. What's important, what's not important, what's a priority, what's not a priority, what is silly, right? The Torah teaches us. So let me give you just one example. We don't have the time to go through all the examples. One example that the rabbis teach us, and this is based on Torah, something that can very, very much be very helpful to the quality of life. They tell us something that I'm sure all of you heard. Ezu ashir hasameach bechelko. Who is the really, truly a rich man? One who's happy, content with his lot. Not one who has $1 billion. It's not the money that makes you rich. Money has never made people happy. What makes you rich, what makes you really rich, is one who's content with what he has. Because if he's content, he has no worries, he's not anxious, he's not jealous, he won't get angry or upset. What is this about being content? Content means one is happy. Happiness, if a person can train himself to be happy most of the time, it's very difficult to be all the time. This will help him in many, many areas of life. Remember what we said before, it's not just about physical health, it's about mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. Right? Holistic healing covers all of that. And happiness is a very important ingredient in contributing towards one's health, physical and spiritual health. So when one is content with what he has, even though it's not so much, this will go a long way. And you know what? They've asked a lot of people who have lived past age 100, past 110. Tell me, what's your secret? So there are people who said, I ate rice a whole day. Things like that. There are people who said, they didn't drink. But you have a few individuals who I believe said the truth. They never took anything to heart. They never got upset, angry, raised their voice. They were always calm, happy, didn't complain. I have no doubt that this kind of an attitude helps. It does not guarantee the age of 110. That will depend on your genes, that will depend on perhaps on merits, depends on other things too. But if a person has a healthy lifestyle or not, if he feels good or not, has a lot to do with his attitude about things. People are under pressure, and that causes heart attacks, strokes, nervous, anxious, right? All of these things that people have today much more than in the past. So happiness, and who teaches this happiness? The Torah, telling us why we should be happy. The best way to finish is with a very important message from Rav Nachman of Breslov. Rav Nachman of Breslov, who lived about 200 years ago, says, do you know why people close their eyes when they're in pain? When you're in tremendous, excruciating pain, you shut your eyes, you close your eyes. Why? So he explains like this. In reality, everything that happens to us is for the good. It's all for the good. Even pain and suffering is an atonement, is for the good. Hashem only wants to do what's good for us. Therefore, he says, if people would know what the tachlit, what the purpose of life is, they would forget about all their pain. He says, imagine somebody looking at a distance, and he sees an object, but it's very, very far. So he begins to squint his eyes. What is he doing by squinting his eyes? He's trying to focus on that object and removing anything else that may be blocking his vision. So you can focus and get a clearer picture of that object in the distance. He says the same is true when we are in pain. He says, subconsciously, we're not conscious of this, subconsciously, what the human being is doing is trying to focus on the tachlit, on the ultimate purpose of life, and removing any external thoughts away. And if he does so properly and focuses on the tachlit of life, what is the purpose of life? To bring down Hashem into this world, that his name should be one, to serve him. If we focus only on that and we remove everything else away, we won't feel the pain. And he says that's the idea behind closing our eyes when we say Shema Yisrael. We close our eyes to focus on the ultimate purpose of life, to serve him. That's the most important thing of all. When we are able to focus properly on what's truly important, on the ultimate purpose of life, and we leave everything else aside, we will be able to forget any pain. Now, this is not necessarily a cure, necessarily to some ailment, right? There are all kinds of illnesses that need to be treated. But what this does is remind us that one's focus, one's outlook is very, very important. If one is going through pain, if one is going through a hard time, it doesn't have to be physical pain, it could be monetary pain, any kind of situation where he's having a hard time, it's important what he thinks about. He can make his situation worse by becoming sad and depressed over it, or he can remove all these thoughts that are bothering away and focus on the purpose of life. What am I here for? What do I need to accomplish? What's important and what's not important? Remember the story I told you about the rabbi who was going through surgery? They were cutting off his leg, and he composed a song that lasted about 20 or 30 minutes. And as a result of that, he didn't need any anesthesia. He didn't feel any pain as the surgery was being done in his leg. He focused on composing the song. That is something very, very special, something very, very powerful. Kavanah, to have focus in our prayer, in our blessings, to mean the words that we say. That prayer, that blessing is much more powerful. It can travel greater distances. If we say the words just like that, as though something is routine, we rush through our prayers, they're not as effective. They don't go anywhere. That is the power of concentration, concentrating on something. And we know what concentration does. We know that it's how powerful it is. But the more so in the spiritual realm. Because as we said all along, it's all a microcosm. The human being, the physical body, is a microcosm of the spiritual world. He has tremendous powers in him, both physical and spiritual, because we have a soul and a physical body. It's just that a lot of people are just unaware of the spiritual part of them. They just focus on the physical. They take care of the physical. Take care of your spirit. Take care of your neshama, of your soul. And if one does take care of all the aspects of his spiritual and physical body, in other words, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, then B'ezrat Hashem, he will attain what's called balance or harmony in his life and in his body. And this is the greatest cure of all, when everything is imbalanced. However, that's not so easy. It's not easy because we have many, many challenges. The most powerful challenge of all is that evil inclination that gets in the way. And for that, we have to turn to all kinds of other means, but not just physical means, spiritual means, to do battle with this inclination, because this inclination is a spiritual inclination. It's not a physical. It's not, well, it does work on the physical level, but it's really a spiritual force that is getting us to be distracted of the ultimate purpose of life. Think about your body. Think about your muscles. Think about your diet. Think about your comforts. Well, what about your connection with Hashem? That immune system, that spiritual immune system, therefore needs to be constantly strong. And it could be only strengthened through prayer, through Torah learning, and through having the right attitude about life. Amen.